We're just days away from the beginning of some major street work downtown, with the impact being felt by streetcar riders, drivers, and residents throughout the summer. Clara Pasica joins us now from Queen near Logan with more on this. And Clara, what can people expect?
Well, Dwight, I seem to be the bearer of bad news here at this streetcar stop on Queen Street. I'm just by the Jimmy Simpson Recreation Center in Riverside. And many of the routes that people normally take from this neighborhood heading in to town are ones that are going to be affected by this. Those who normally grab the 503 Kingston Road streetcar, the 504 or the 304 King streetcar, or the Lakeshore streetcar will experience the pain of some diversions and some bus replacements for these streetcars. So, you know, that's not necessarily being welcomed by everyone, but some mixed reaction here in this neighborhood. Have a listen.
So you gotta do what they gotta do to keep it sustained and keep it going. I use CBC every day. I'm not gonna complain.
I have a friend who lives like way in the West End near like Gladstone. And I took the streetcar last week, and it took an hour and 20 minutes.
At the end of the day, as long as they're doing a good job of articulating this to commuters, it has to be done. You know, the city has, the infrastructure needs to be updated. Any way you look at it, it's probably better just to walk.
So we also heard from some people in this neighborhood saying they've actually already given up on taking the streetcar due to some issues that they had in the past. Recently, because of some of the Ontario line construction around Queen when they hit the core. Others saying, you know, they're not sure sort of what they're going to do about this. A few people saying maybe buses will be better, at least if a streetcar breaks down, you're not sort of stuck behind it there. So here's exactly how it's all going to manifest. It's all going to start beginning on Sunday. And in May and June, there'll be no streetcar service on King all the way between River Street and Spadina. Replacement buses will operate starting at Broadview and Gerrard, running right through to Bathurst. The Kingston Road and Lakeshore routes will mostly operate on different streets like Queen, Richmond, and Adelaide. Some people saying, why is this happening all at once? A spokesperson for the TTC saying there's actually a reason for that. The hope is that get it all done at once. You know, a lot of pain in a short term, but maybe the pain won't last so long.
Yeah, summer construction season. It always gets us. We'll be walking. Thank you for that, Clara.
We know that 50% of the GDP in Ontario is right here in Toronto, and we need to get the 401 moving. It's at full capacity, even at midnight.
Doug Ford on the growing congestion on Ontario's largest and busiest highway. And that's why the Premier says he's put the proposed tunnel under the 401 on a priority list. Ford says it's a vital nation-building project, deserving of streamlined approvals.
We can't think anymore now about, you know, a year down the road. We have to think of 50 years down the road. We know through the studies that all 400 series highways will be filled in the next 10 years. So we have to think about moving forward.
The Premier first pitched the controversial plan last summer and doubled down on it during the provincial election. He wants the tunnel to run from Mississauga in the west to Scarborough in the east. Critics say it will cost tens of billions and question whether it would solve the congestion problem. This comes after a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney in March, where he asked for the list of projects. Ford has also included the Ring of Fire and GO 2.0 on that list.
The number one priority is the Ring of Fire, one project, one review, which is absolutely critical.
Opposition critics were quick to pan the tunnel's inclusion.
Honestly, this is outrageous and ridiculous.
I'm not sure the Fantasy Tunnel will be on the Prime Minister's list of priorities.
I just think it is ridiculous that the Premier even suggests that his Fantasy Tunnel is somehow a project that's going to stimulate the economy.
But the province's transportation minister says the government can build big projects. And despite the skepticism, it intends to push ahead with the tunnel.
7 years ago, when we released our plan on $70 billion over for public transit, the subway lines across the province, I think a lot of people doubted that we could get shovels in the ground. We've got shovels in the ground on those. And look, it's time to build.
The Ford government said last week that it's moving ahead with a study of the tunnel. It'll take 2 years to complete, and it does contemplate the possibility that the tunnel may not be feasible. That despite the government's desire to push ahead with the project. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
A 33-year-old male. Across Ontario, cities are grappling with an addiction crisis, one that began by some estimates almost a decade ago. The province says in an effort to do more, it's now considering mandatory addiction treatment for those in jail, on parole, or probation.
There's no doubt that there has been an increase in the use of illegal and frankly deadly drugs in our communities and, yes, in our corrections facilities.
In Ontario, more than 2,600 people in 2023 died from opioid overdoses. 5 years earlier, that number was below 1,600. The province says it wants to study involuntary addiction treatment. This advocate, who was once addicted to opioids for 9 years, says the discussion is inappropriate.
We shouldn't even be having the conversation about involuntary treatment without addressing the fact that we don't have enough voluntary treatment.
When it comes to data, experts say there's little to no compelling evidence suggesting involuntary treatment works.
Motivation to change is a crucial component to treatment outcomes. I don't think, holding them against their will and forcing treatment to them is the answer.
From an ethical point of view, if you're going to take away someone's fundamental rights, you've got to be able to show a risk-benefit equation that the benefits to society and to the individual, and perhaps I'd reverse the order on that, to the individual and the society, are so compelling that it's justified. And that evidence simply is not there.
There are also concerns about what could happen after someone who wasn't willing to go to treatment relapses. According to CAMH, data from Massachusetts found that when there was a legal mandate for involuntary treatment, fatal overdose after discharge was twice as likely compared to voluntary treatment.
So it was more like sort of holding someone than actually helping and treating someone. So I think that the most important critical piece here is that it is a health-focused intervention, and that we're, thinking about how we can prevent somebody from getting involved in the criminal justice system earlier.
In a statement, a spokesperson tells us through the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of the Solicitor General, we are collaborating with a number of key community stakeholders and partners to ensure a coordinated approach for justice-involved individuals. Cull says he hopes those conversations include people like him.
And every public health table, for that matter, within these issues should have people with lived experience on it.
Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
President Trump's tariffs, this guy drives me nuts. I just get wound up. My team starts getting nervous when I go off the teleprompter. What drives me nuts, you see this guy on TV, we don't need Canada. Really? I guess you don't need our high-grade nickel that they use 57% of their nickel to build their military, their aerospace, and manufacturing. Imagine if we never gave them our high-grade nickel. Or my friend Scott Moe out in Saskatchewan, if he cut off the potash, that 87% of the farmers down in the U.S. use Saskatchewan potash. Or the uranium coming from Saskatchewan as well. What would they do if they didn't have our electricity? The 1.5 million homes and businesses in New York and Minnesota and Michigan, they wouldn't have any power. And I talked to all these governors, no matter if it's Republican or Democrat. And even the Republicans, behind closed doors, because they're terrified of their leader, that's pretty crazy in itself, that totally disagree with attacking their closest friends and allies. We always believe in something called the AMCAN Fortress, the American-Canadian Fortress. We put a ring around it. We'd be unstoppable anywhere in the entire world. We'd be the wealthiest, richest two nations in the world and the safest two nations. And, all he's trying to do, and we wish him, I forget about political stripes, by the way. We have a prime minister down there, and he's going to be sitting down, and he's going to give it everything he can. This is a time to unite the country, not people saying, oh, I'm leaving the country, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. United we stand, divided we fall. And we have to be united Canada together to fight President Trump's tariff.
City Councillor and former Deputy Mayor Michael Thompson offered a very different narrative on the stand Tuesday than the one court heard back in October when the first witness in his trial testified. Thompson faces sexual assault accusations from two women who went to a Muskoka cottage with him in July 2022. One says he touched her inappropriately while applying sunscreen to her, and another who says Thompson forced himself on her in the middle of the night when she was very drunk. Both of those women have already taken the stand, as has a third woman, the first witness in this case, who said that the cottage weekend was pitched to her by Thompson as a networking opportunity. But she was surprised when she arrived and saw only a few people were there. Thompson denied that on the stand today, saying that it was an opportunity to specifically get away from work and that he had invited not only her, but other members of her family. How Thompson and that woman first met was at the center of his testimony today. In October, the woman, who was in university in 2022, said she and Thompson met at a Yorkville art gallery when he approached her and invited her to the bar for a glass of wine, then insisted he meet her at a bar next door later. But Thompson testified today that she was the one who approached him and introduced herself, and that it was her who asked if he would be going to the bar next door, where several people were planning to gather after the art gallery event. They both went next door later, and when Thompson was leaving the Yorkville bar, she came out at the same time, and he learned she had no way home, so he gave her a ride. During the woman's testimony, she said that when they arrived at her house, Thompson handed her two $50 bills. But on the stand, Thompson said he did that after a conversation about how stressed she was about being unable to pay her phone bill, and that it would be cut off. Thompson then explained that he often helps people financially, especially those in his ward, saying he's helped constituents with groceries or even new clothes after someone was hit by a car. Now, at the time, she said about receiving the money, quote, "It was uncalled for and it was unsolicited. He just handed it to me and insisted that I take it." But Thompson offered a very different series of events today, saying, quote, "She was very thankful, she gave me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek." Thompson will take the stand again on Wednesday. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
We're here in the Battersea Museum, and the museum was started by Mrs. Sonia Bata. She created the foundation in 1979 and opened the museum in 1995.
We want the visitor to feel that he physically was there where the shoes were there.
What is the significance behind this milestone?
I think a lot of people were curious, what would a museum of shoes be like? What kind of work would it do? And I think 30 years on, I think we've proven that shoes can be endlessly fascinating, that shoes as a lens with which to engage with larger cultural questions allows for really insightful observations. And he cleverly incorporated the bottle. Even when I started 25 years ago, I kept thinking, how long will I be able to do shoes for? But 25 years on for me, there still are so many questions that can be asked. So I think that we've proven that we're an established, respected institution, yet we still offer that surprise of what can you learn, what will you learn when you come here.
So in a city like Toronto, where there's so many things to do, why do you think it's important that we have museums like this that have such deep roots in the city?
Some of the reasons why museums, obviously especially our museum, I think is so important, is that for the artifacts that we work with, everybody has familiarity with them. And we have footwear from around the world. We are in the most diverse city on the planet, and our collection actually reflects that. And so we're able to, I think, not only speak to people about what they've had familiarity with, but also open up eyes to footwear solutions, cultural ideas from around the world. When the museum opened 30 years ago, one of the sort of blessings of the design of this building is that we have 3 temporary gallery spaces. So we're able to change exhibitions all the time. The exhibition that's kicking off, our 30th anniversary, is on the history of the cowboy boot.
And I think museums that have collections that are based on everyday objects such as shoes, and of course Bata has shoes that are everyday and shoes that are not everyday objects, but they have a powerful kind of container of stories. It's oftentimes challenging for smaller museums to survive and have anniversaries. So I think it's a testament to the strength of the collection, the ability of the museum, I think, to adjust to the changes in the field, to welcome new communities.
And on this 30-year milestone, I'm sure you're reflecting on the past, but what are you also thinking about in terms of the future of the museum?
I think that we will continue to do this incredible research here and continue to offer engaging exhibitions, working more with community about their own feelings about footwear in their societies, and increasing that dialogue. You know, we're free on Sundays, so we want everybody who can come to the museum. You can go to a shoe store and see lots of shoes. That is not the experience that you're going to have here. We use shoes as, pardon the pun, a stepping stone into larger cultural ideas and questions. You will leave saying, I had no idea footwear could reveal this much information about a historic time period, a culture, a moment in time. We have seen that when visitors leave, they absolutely do get that. They say, never knew you could learn this much from a pair of shoes.